Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming today to our Bridge Builder discussion and webinar. We are excited that you are here with us. We see some friendly faces, and perhaps you may be watching this on recording later because we're going to be recording it. But we are excited that you're here. We're going to be talking about this new series that we've developed, and what's exciting about it for us anyway is just really, it's been a labor of love to think about it and to kind of consider all of the different ways that we might be able to share and improve lives for kids of this age group. Some of the teachers were noticing that there just were some things that were, showing up differently than what we had typically seen previously in our classrooms. And so that's what we're going to be here sharing tonight. It's a new series offering for next year. And then we probably can share a little bit more about some other developments as well. So I'm just glad that you're here tonight. My name is Jody Guerra, and I am an instructor here, and I also coordinate all of the different processes among the teachers of our consortium. And so kind of a little bit of registration, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of customer service, but primarily just representing this group of teachers. And then we also have Jess Woods here tonight to share with you all about this particular series. And Tom Kazoyan is another teacher that's here with us. And so maybe we'll be able to get some input from Tom as well. He will be teaching one of the classes. So a little bit of background of what we're seeing and what Generation Z is, because what we really were thinking this would be courses for what are being called Zoomers. Is that just a great term or what, right? Zoomers? I'm kind of a Generation X girl myself, but Zoomers sounds, kind of a lot more fun, frankly. But in any case, Zoomers are those kids that we are seeing now in high school from about age 15 or so to 21. They're defining it rather narrowly right now. And so that's who we're seeing in most of our high school classes. And then moving beyond the Zoomers, you have the millennial group, which starts at about age 22 or 23, somewhere in there, and up to 37. And so that's the millennial generation, followed by Gen X, who's probably 37 or 38, somewhere in there, to 54. And then we have the baby boomer generation. So anyway, what Generation Z, what psychologists and people studying these generational differences are finding, it's really rather fascinating that this is a group of students, and most of these kids are students still, although some of them may not have gone on to college. But what they're facing and what they're seeing is definitely higher stress environment, as well as just a general kind of almost a malaise where almost they feel more inclined towards not only just admitting but identifying mental health issues, which it's that perhaps that's not surprising, but when you're a teacher and you keep having referrals for, and my child is suffering from anxiety, and my child is suffering from depression, or my child, you start to notice these things over time. So we were thinking, as we began to study some of this and looking at some of the statistics. So a Pew study came out not too long ago. I think it was just last year in January of this past year, so in 2019, that there was a study done, and it just fascinates me that the research about Generation Z says that they're less hedonistic and they're better behaved, but they are more lonely than what they have seen in previous generations. I don't know. Are any of you seeing that in your own homes? Totally behaved kids, but lonely kids. And we've seen that too. How can I make friends? And, you're on your phone the whole time, or, things like that. And that Generation Z are also more stressed than their adults. Now, if you're maybe a millennial or maybe perhaps a Gen X person, I don't know that you would describe your high school years as lonely. Would you describe your high school years as lonely? Oh, Jennifer wrote in, yes, they have 500 Instagram followers, yet they're lonely. And they can take the perfect picture, right? I'm still figuring out how to take a picture that is appropriate and that sort of thing. So this is requiring a different skill set to deal with. You know, we tend to focus a lot on academics, especially as homeschool parents. We want to make sure that we have rigor. We want to make sure that we're doing a good job by our children academically. But how can we help them in this new environment? I wanted to show you one of the graphics in the study, and let me go ahead and send you in the chat. And also, if you happen to be watching this as a link, I wanted to share. I'll put these links in the space on the parent resource page, but let me just share it here too in case anyone wants to see where these statistics are coming from. Interestingly, just look at, especially on the left-hand side, that mental health of Gen Z. So if you'll notice that compared to other generations, that this Gen Z, the 15 to 21-year-olds, are least likely to report themselves being in very good or even excellent mental health. I mean, look at that number, 45%. Yikes, compared to older adults, boomers, Gen Xers. So that's startling. It's startling to psychologists who are really noticing this. And that it makes me sad too, Jennifer. And then notice these news events that are stressful, that are stressing this group of people, young people that we have in our homes and that we are working with. Mass shootings, rise in suicide rates, climate change and global warming, and then just watching the immigration issues that we've seen on television, as well as, sexual harassment and assault reports. It's almost like you can't escape it, right? And so you can see that in every single one of those categories that these students are feeling stressed. And one of the authors quoted in the document that I just sent over to you, one of the things that he said was that young people are feeling the impact of issues in the news. They see this all the time. They see it on Instagram, they see it on Facebook, they see it at school. They hear about these things in their various, whatever periodicals, blogs, things that they may come across. But these are all things that they have relatively little control over, right? I think most of us would agree that we feel like we have little control over those things as well. Yet we have a background of mental health and mental stability to help us somewhat weather this. And so we're noticing that our students, as we in class, what we're seeing from our end, kids under stress, kids with anxiety, kids who really are lonely and are looking for interaction in a meaningful way. Restlessness, not knowing what to do next, not knowing what to focus on, overly tired. How many of you have kids at your home who are suffering from just sleep deprivation or sleep disorder kind of things from being too close to the phone, watching computer in bed, all the kinds of things that we think that we're monitoring. And then all of a sudden you're like, what do you mean you stayed up all night? Oh, so-and-so texted me, or, whatever may be happening. And then what this also produces is more like unidimensional thinking or tunnel vision, where students are not able to even consider any other avenues of thought because they're bombarded at all times by either what they're continually seeing and it's reinforced. So they're not getting any outside stimulation to help them deal with those things in either a positive or productive way, or they're just repeating or regurgitating what they're hearing, but they're not necessarily thinking deeply about those things or about those issues. And as we were thinking about these things, just one of the verses, maybe this is one of my life verses, I don't know, but from Ephesians, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. One of the things that really struck me one morning as I was pondering on that was that we don't want our students to lose hope, that they have the propensity and the ability to do good works powered through Christ's Spirit, and that He has a plan for them, and a good plan for them to be productive in society and to be helpers and to be agents of healing. And so when we were thinking about what we could do for students, what they really need are tools and practice, and then actual experience in navigating some of these issues and thinking about them. But we want to do those kinds of things in a very healing environment, in a safe environment. I know a lot of people give kids, oh, you're a snowflake. You know, they may be a snowflake because they don't have the experience and the practice and the tools to weather anything else. And so we want to be able to provide more of a healing environment where kids can navigate and talk through and learn about some of these issues so that they can then be positive agents of change in their own lives and in society in general. So I'm kind of excited about that, right? I mean, does that seem somewhat relevant to you all, that we have to kind of change some of the things that we're doing in education and in our homes so that we can provide a better environment for our students to learn in, and for them when they leave our homes to have that basis and that foundation. We feel so strongly about it that we wanted to develop some new courses with new some differences, and that's what Jess Woods is going to be talking about next. So Jess, I'm going to be quiet and let you just talk, and I'm going to change. You just tell me when to move the slides.
Thanks, Jody. Hi, everyone. So glad to be here with you tonight. So as Jody said, we started thinking through as a group of what we could do to help this next generation really have a healthy mindset and be able to go into the world in a place that is not, you don't want to come out of these, I don't want to call teenage years easy, but honestly, like, it doesn't get easier, right? So we want to kind of put them off on a good path. Could you change it, Jody? Thank you. So we are going to be launching the Bridge Builder series in fall 2020. Our goal for this series is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. What we're hoping to do is help students cultivate the capacity to show compassion, to grow in empathy, and those are different things. Being able to feel compassionate towards someone, and also being able to understand someone, even if it's not a belief that you hold yourself. We also want to help students share love with all people, and the ultimate goal is to help these students to collaborate with others to provide solutions to problems in an increasingly complex world, because again, this world's not going to get easier either, right? Next slide, please. The methods that we're hoping to employ in these courses, and they span across different subjects. So while I'm an English teacher, not all of the classes are going to be literature-based, right? But the methods that we are hoping to use is we're going to practice skills and procure knowledge through learning about others, through holding and examining a variety of opinions. This doesn't mean that we, have to embrace every opinion that we hear, but we at least, want to be knowledgeable about them, to have thought through them. Those things can help affirm our own beliefs as well. And we want to practice communication with others through auditory, visual, and written media. Next slide, please. Okay, so for our Bridge Builder series, you may be saying, well, how are these any different from other Excelsior classes? I know several of you have students with Excelsior classes. You've loved the courses. You have told us that it does help with deeper thinking and that sort of thing. So how are these Bridge Builder classes distinct from our other course offerings? And there are a couple of ways that we are distinguishing these. The first is through dialogue and deep thinking foundations. We are hoping to move away from some of the regurgitated responses that we get in class and the superficial treatments of issues that are brought up in course study by digging a little deeper and confronting issues head on. We want to skip the ad hominem attack that is prevalent in social media, and that just means, if you're not for us, you're against us. It's a lot of personal attacks on people and not necessarily on ideas. We want to be able to have a more compassionate stance there and not to see a difference of opinion as a personal attack. Because if you are constantly thinking that if someone's not for you, they're against you, that's going to increase your stress. It is not going to help you with empathy, and ultimately you're not going to feel safe in your world, right? So we want to kind of try to give students a healthy launching place for that as well. These courses will require students to wrestle with real issues and real feelings and scholarship in an effort to articulate the students' own ideas, emotions, and responses, which means that their responses may be different from their peers' responses, may be different from their instructors' responses, and that's okay. Ultimately, we want to have a place where these students can interact respectfully with others in live sessions, and through moderated discussions, students will learn to share and articulate well. The second distinction is that we are going to offer fresh and current content. All of our Bridge Builder courses are deliberately curated with student interest and current events in mind. So in these classes, students may see or discuss issues, works, or subjects that are a little uncomfortable and make us squirm a little bit. That's completely intentional. I know that might sound a little weird, like, oh, why would we want these students to be uncomfortable? But the thing is, students are interested in these issues and these topics. So why not help them learn about them and deal with them in a healthy, affirming environment? So we'll tackle such things with respect for subjects, presenters, and listeners alike, so that we learn to endure discomfort, and hopefully through that process we will have greater empathy, compassion, understanding, and ultimately respect. And I think if we're able to do that, then again, it's going to help reduce some of that stress and anxiety. One thing that I do want to note here, if there are, for instance, in a literature-based class, some of the books that we read are going to have some mature content and certainly will make you a little uncomfortable. That will be noted on the course description, and we certainly do encourage parents to read those works either before you enroll or read them along with your student to help facilitate some of that healthy discussion. We are also going to keep these ecumenical and welcoming in the approach. As you may or may not know, Excelsior teachers all sign a statement of faith, and our approach is and will remain an ecumenical one. We do hope, however, that non-Christians will join our courses and feel completely welcome to do so. Assignments in our Bridge Builder series will not require any sort of memorization of scripture. That's not going to be the focus here, but there may be parts of the Bible that will be applicable to the content. So if you're talking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse or something like that that comes up, the teacher may ask for the student to read a primary source in that would obviously come from the Bible. Like all of our courses, we aren't making assumptions on students' faith backgrounds or on their biblical knowledge. And while teachers are encouraged to let students know what they think, they are also able to share what they think as well. So it's kind of an open and, the word just escaped me, but a welcoming environment, a safe environment for you to be able to do that. So we really hope ultimately that these courses, through all of that, will be a springboard for dialogue at home and in the students' circle of influence, so that this isn't just something that happens in the course, but it's happening outside in the student's life as well. And then the last distinction is that these are college preparatory. Now, a lot of our classes at Excelsior are college preparatory as far as content is concerned, but as Jody mentioned earlier, as the culture changes, our instruction has to change a little bit in order for our students to be ready for post-secondary issues. So much like an understanding of the theory of evolution is necessary for someone entering the collegiate realm or for working in a field of science, an understanding of additional authors, themes, works, and histories may also be necessary for students. So what we're hoping to do is expand beyond the traditional textbook approaches that you do see in some of our other classes, and help open up students' eyes to some of the other things that are not necessarily covered in traditional classes, but that are going to be really helpful and really important going forward. And again, that will be helpful whether they are going to attend college or not, just because after high school, it's the real world if you don't go to college, right? So it's our hope that the content and the experience of these courses will really help students get to that place where they feel more confident in themselves, they have more empathy, and they're able to have hard discussions and not shy away from them and feel like they can't have those conversations. Next slide, please, Jody. Sorry, I know that was a long one. So some of the Bridge Builder courses that we're going to be able to offer this next school year are Expand the Canon, Women Who Wrote the World, and that's a fall offered class. I teach that one. It's going to be really awesome because we're going to be able to dig into some of the women who have been incredibly influential in the publishing world, and they expose different cultures, different experiences, things like that. So that's a good one. I obviously can't talk about every single one of these, but using media without being used, taking control of your digital life and your future, that's obviously really important. If we don't learn how to navigate media, we can be completely kind of taken through the ringer with it, right? Intellectually Curious, Sweet Home Alabama and Mississippi and even Georgia, so there's some good Southern lit there. Intellectual Curious, Indigenous Peoples of the Americas. The Bible and Science, Expand the Canon, Native American Exploration. That's another thing in the literary canon that is completely overlooked in a traditional setting. So being able to have that context, I think, will be really valuable. Judge for Yourself, Constitutional Law. History Detectives, Using Primary Sources to Explore History, and the Bible and Current Events. Because these classes are so dialogue based, you really do, we are going to require live attendance, and you're also going to have both an audio and a visual presence because, again, these are very dialogue based. So whereas in our traditional classes, you might be able to miss a class and just see the recording later, or you might be able to get away by using the chat box instead of the microphone, we really want to be able to have an open and efficient source of communication in these classes. So live attendance required, as would be an auditory and visual component. And I think I'm handing it back off to Jody now, right? I could be wrong about that.
I think so, yes. But
Okay.
I wanted to ask real quick if Tom, did you want to come on? Tom is actually teaching the Using the Media class. So I'm going to let Tom just tell you a little bit about that. Oh, he's just going to say hi. It's going to be a great class, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah, you know, I really appreciate, this is something that we've been talking about among the consortium of teachers for quite a while now. And it's something that's on, I've got a teenage daughter who is the Zoomer, right? And so a lot of these things resonate in my family along with a lot of your families. And the class that I'm doing the Using Media Without Being Used course. I spent a lot of time thinking about that. How can even I avoid getting sucked into sort of the downsides of our amazing technology we have, and ideally to be able to give students the tools to be able to engage with that. Even understanding that 5 years from now, what they're using in technology will be different than anything we have today. How do we prepare them for that so they can engage with it and ask good questions and take positive steps for that? So I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be a great class. And we so appreciate all of you coming and listening to our information on the Bridge Builder classes. I'm going to stop the recording now, but we have some more information